Beautiful Saturday. Thank you for coming, all of you for coming. Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Danny and Keirice. We'll start our event. So we'll have 3 presentations, and then we'll have a kind of a panel answering some questions from you and some questions that were sent to me earlier. There's one from Jason as well within that. So without further ado, I'll move to Beverly go, and then Beverly. I'll just read some of your, yes. So Beverly is a senior service designer at Optus, where she has led design initiatives across product life cycle for their smart devices and mobile enterprises experiences. Initially on the path of becoming a lawyer, she accidentally veered into design and has since become an expert in merging creativity of the design process with the stark pragmatism of the commercial world. Previously at Deloitte Digital, Beverly focused on strategic design and innovation in government. She has also worked in sports, energy, and banking industry, tackling service design challenges, e-commerce transformations, end-to-end customer experience redesigns. And outside of work, she's a big reader and co-hosts a podcast aimed at diversifying reading habits. So without further ado, put your hands together for Beverly Go.
All right, thank you. Cool. So, hi, thank you, Bernardo, for that lovely introduction. I'm doing a short talk about CX chaos to clarity, making trends actually work in the real world. So what I'll be talking about today is bringing you through what we like to call a hype cycle and how that actually travels through big organizations like Optus and all the rest in Australia. So, oh, cool. Well, Bernardo covered it a little bit, but I just wanted to do a bit of a career journey anyway. So I started out doing a law degree, finished that, went to the courts and decided it wasn't for me because they had me faxing to the courts at like 12 a.m. to get to a hearing the next day. And I thought, I haven't used a fax machine since like 1990, whatever. And that wouldn't do. That actually led me to one of the better website experiences I had experienced at that point in time, which was the VicRose website. Paying a fine was like exceptionally easy, and it was really useful. They know how to digitize like the right stuff anyway. It was really useful when I was talking to my clients anyway, who were from very disadvantaged backgrounds, and from there I saw how useful and how crucial it was. User experience, service design. If you've ever been to court, I hope you haven't. It's terrible. It's shit. You wait for so long. They really make you feel like a criminal when, you know, sometimes you're just there because you want to argue against a Mikey fine that you think shouldn't have been given to you. So from there, I kind of veered into startup land because 2015 was the time of startups and I wanted to be part of that. And then I got like my first real job anyway in consulting, where I spent about 6 years working across many different types of clients, many different things. I think what I'll say about consulting is that being able to go across so many different organizations is that the shit's the same, all the problems are the same, and it's very applicable across everything, which is both the pros and cons of being consulting and of course meeting lovely Keirice. And then finally, I had enough of consulting and went to become Ash Barty's best friend, or to work at Optus back when Ash Barty was one of the ambassadors, which is till this day maybe still one of the highlights. But it's also been a great time at Optus doing the job. All this to say is that your career journey, I know a lot of you are starting out, doesn't have to be linear. Getting your first job or even your first experience at uni and then further on, like, kind of kicks off, so don't worry too much about it. You never know where you're going to end up anyway, so just continue along the path. I was asked to talk about CX in my organization, but I thought I will share with you a couple of my favorite CX frameworks. If you've done any design strategy, I think these will be very familiar to you. There are many frameworks, and these two have been the most useful in terms of filtering out the bullshit. The first one is DVF, or desirability, feasibility, viability. This is just important because although we are the champions of customer voices within organizations, It's just that organizations are there to make money. So, you know, up revenue, down cost. That is literally every organization ever. So having that feasibility and viability lens on everything as you talk to different stakeholders is super important. And then the next one is what the design process feels like. So this scribble line, I think, amplifies everything of what the design process usually feels like. It will all work out in the end, but in the middle of it, it's really frustrating and very messy. But I just have to keep in mind that that is all part of being in that ambiguous design process. Cool. So this is the main part of my presentation. I don't know if you guys have looked at the hype cycle before. Yes. So the hype cycle is usually used to describe new technology that's coming in and how it moves through organizations or even like society. You have a tech trigger and then everyone gets really excited and you've got peak of inflated expectations. Then you realize that it doesn't work the way you thought it would be or what it will promise. It goes into trouble with the solutions. And then finally someone figures out like an actual way to be useful. And then you kind of get into the plateau of productivity. This doesn't just kind of apply to technology. Maybe a close example to you might be like the Adidas Sambas. So you would have seen that go through the hype cycle as well. Everybody was like super excited about all the influencers posted about it. Then after that, people started posting pictures of them getting cut by their Samba shoes. So that's your trouble disillusionment. And in a slow environment, there are other trainers that you can buy. And that's where Adidas Sambas became just another shoe. I wanted to take out the hype cycle, and this is Gartner. They publish this every year. I want to take out the one that came out when I started working in 2017. And I don't know if you can see, but if you look at all the tech that was coming out in 2017 compared to 2023, it's completely different. Just wanted to tell you that trends come and go, and people hop on trends so quickly and then also abandon them so quickly. So AI, I think at that point in time was called artificial general artificial intelligence. There's nothing. But in 2023, almost every single trend is like a variation of AI. So you can see that it's like really heavily influenced. Stuff like VR, AR, I think cloud computing, smart robots. Not to say that they're probably used in cutting edge stuff, but because nobody could think of a like customer use case for it, they've kind of just faded into the background. So I wanted to bring this to life a little bit based on one of the projects that I worked on at the moment. So eSIM is, maybe if you've traveled before and you've used it, it's something that we've seen, I think, in our lifetime become very quickly available to people. So you know what a like normal SIM looks like. And the eSIM was actually first introduced in 2012 by the Global System for Mobile Communications. And then Google got their hands on it and they released the first phone with eSIM capabilities, I think around like 2015, but because I don't know if you know this about Google, they don't really care about design, so they're really fully on engineering. So the user experience was so clunky and so bad, nobody really kind of bothered to look at it. And you know, Apple then jumped onto the scene and they made it work for the iPhone X series, and that's where you kind of see the importance of CX here, because having that really easy, don't have to think about it, just put it in, really brought that to the mainstream. So eSIMs, I thought I'll just put the layout, the hype cycle for you. So it was in 2017 an IoT platform, so it was used a lot in agriculture, etc., which is important to society, but not that important to you and me. So it was in the peak of inflated expectations of what they could do with it. And I guess landing now in 2023, when you start to see, you know, being able to use your eSIMs for your Europe and UK exchange or your Japan holiday, and everybody just having that embedded in your phone, that's when you know it's kind of reached a plateau of productivity. There are enough competitors for this, for mass adoption in our society. So I guess bringing it to like, so what pushes mainstream organization, not just science or academia, like what brings it out of academia, usually it's being pushed by industry standards. So for example, at Optus, one of the biggest things about getting that eSIM technology right and making that really easy for consumers like you and me was because in America, they're making iPhones without any more SIM card cartridges. So they're like, well, if that's coming to Australia, we better get our shit together. The next one is, cost and ROI. So having eSIM means that it will reduce that transportation, like you don't have to ship out SIMs, you don't have to print SIMs out. So that's always a really big one. We'd love to reduce cost. And second and thirdly, it's customer demand, because people have gone overseas or whatever, or gone to other countries and seen how seamless that experience is. They want the same thing within Australia itself. So you know what an eSIM, think back to when you use an eSIM. It's usually pretty easy, but think about that scaled out when you had to do it for thousands of people. So that was one of the problems I had to work with when we were contemplating making a simple and easy experience for large companies. So think like if everyone at RMIT got a phone with an eSIM, or when you go to work at a bank or whatever and they need company phones. So rolling it out for thousands of times was going to be a real big headache for people, because while the capability exists from a consumer lens, it wasn't there for an enterprise yet, and there was a lot of back-end technology that people didn't really see. So when your organization wants to adopt something new, there are kind of, as a service designer, I think one of the big things is that you get to ask the hard questions, because you're not kind of loyal to anything. As a service, if you've done any sort of service design, you know that you do the front stage where the customer sees what's happening, then you look at the backstage as well, from an employee, process, people, tech. So that means you talk to and collaborate with a large amount of people. So when things come up, and I'm sure we'll touch on AI, but here, just easier, it falls on us sometimes, not that you always get listened to ask the hard questions. So I don't know if you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, but essentially the Dunning-Kruger effect is when somebody who has a really low competence in an area thinks that they're actually really good at it because they don't know what they don't know. This happens at scale in an organization, especially with new trends. So you'll have a lot of say executives who have gone to a conference, heard something new, want to bring it back, but they understand very little of it. So you might get a over-fervor or investment in something, and then they lose interest and they abandon it. So I guess it's us sometimes to steer whether they are kind of investing or doing the right thing, or what customers want. So, you know, do they know why they want to invest in this new trend? Are they serious about it? Are they going to put a bit of resources behind it? And then finally, will the organization dedicate the necessary time to get it right? Often the answer is no to all these questions, but you do it anyway because you need something out to market. But I think it just helps you kind of have a guiding light to whatever you're doing, so that you don't go insane when you're trying to implement something new. The next one is when you're in the depths of trying to create a new experience or to bring something new to market, is that you have to pick your battles. So here is the DVF framework again. In the context of the eSIM, one of the couple of few challenges in this DVF framework was our customers, they just want it to work. They don't want any of the admin of distributing the thousands of eSIMs, and at the moment they were struggling because they had to individually send eSIMs out to their employees. The next one is viability. No funding, budget challenges in getting a new platform built. So when you work in an organization, budget, gets parceled out, and sometimes you run out of money at the end of the year and you have to wait for the new one. So you've got to have that in mind. And then finally, time and legal. So the lack of time to deliver the promised experience to the customers, and also regulatory responsibility. So for this one, it was a legal thing where, because spam is becoming so bad, there is a new requirement where big organizations like banks and telcos aren't allowed to send links anymore. So with that out of the question, it meant that it was a barrier to our experience and what we wanted to do, because I think initially what I wanted to do was really easy, send out link, download your eSIM. But now that you can't do that. We'll have to build a whole new platform, which again comes into no funding to build a platform. So it's a quagmire of things you have to do. So I think when you're designing experience, you keep that all in mind. And I'm sure you heard of MVP, and that's what usually happens. You build like the smallest possible way this could happen. It's not going to be the most amazing experience, but at least like a 2 out of 10, the timing legal, we can't really deal with it. So we just work with the budget that we have and try to meet the customer requirements that we have. And finally, as a service designer, I think one of the big things is because you work on so many levels, you really have to know your audience in terms of what you are presenting. So for this, and if you're presenting to an executive, one of the artifacts that you might bring out is like the wow vision. They don't really want to know what the in-depth technical detail is. And you can see here that's like the big picture, the story of how that like experience is going to work end to end. And then there are also other parts, for example, 3-hour technical walkthroughs, which require a lot more granular detail, and being able to shift what you do from a vision to more of the technical nitty-gritty stuff is really important so that you know how to talk to different audiences. Cool. So finally, I think a lot of times when we're trying to get trends out into market, there's a lot of rush, but I think it's always good to keep in mind that all these just saving PDFs, not lives, unless you're working for a hospital. That's a different story sometimes. And like, don't worry about it. You can have many challenges across the DVF framework. People will be, the Dunning-Kruger effect will be in full force. I think with service design, it's just to keep in mind that your pure design methods work well, I think, in isolation sometimes. But when it gets muddy up in the real world, you just have to learn how to kind of pick your battles and let something go sometimes if you want to see it go to market live. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Is there maybe 1 or 2 questions for Bev? Bev, stay here, please. Still here. Does anyone have a question? Otherwise, I'll kick. Do you have one, Harris?
Yeah, so how do you look at not necessarily the customer experience, but also the staff experience, which will therefore trickle down to the customer experience? In what ways do you look at that and prototype?
Yeah, so we do customer research, but we also do employee research. So those two have to go together. Most of the time, I guess what we call the frontline staff, the people directly interface with customers, are the most important piece of whatever happens, especially in an enterprise world. I know a lot of people work mainly in the consumer world, so for that will be whoever's at the checkout counter. We ask them what the experience is, what their pain points are, and a lot of times they have their own set of systems as well. And if there is time, and time is always the variable, we're able to design for those back-end systems as well, so they marry up to what the customer sees. But yeah, it's really important, and we always try to get that in when we're scoping out a project, that, yeah, we're definitely talking to at least 2 or 3 members who know what's going on, and they can give us insight on where something doesn't work, because the customer might tell you one thing, but the employees doing the things at the back end will tell you quite a different story sometimes. Yeah.
I have a question. So when we teach CX or service design, it's all about desirability, and then feasibility and viability comes later. However, when I talk to people working in industry, you have very quickly a very good sense of what's feasible and what's viable. And sometimes, sometimes I see people thinking about feasibility and viability very early on in the process. Is that how it works? Also, I'll put that technology in that mix as well, and probably Danny would agree. Sometimes people just want that technology. They don't even know what for, but they want to start with the technology. So how do you manage that in your daily professional life?
I think the answer to that is building good relationships, unfortunately. So it depends. So I think you do talk about feasibility and viability way earlier, because you don't want to leave those people out of the conversation. I think it is only very recently actually that the customer voice is coming in. So for example, at Optus, our parent company is Singtel, which is in Singapore. We've got a couple of people down at the moment, and they've sat in a couple of our meetings, and they're really surprised that CX or any part of CX is in the meetings, like strategic meetings itself, because in Asia, they're not even part of the conversation. So it is very tech and like viability led. Is it going to make money? Can we actually do it at a low cost? So I think what happens is you build a relationship so that you can be at the forefront of those conversations, so that you actually get the customer perspective in, because a lot of times they're not even in the room, they're just kind of left out. So yeah, that is kind of the challenge at the moment, improving that value of the customer experience along with the viability and technical feasibility of something.
Very honest. Thank you very much. Put your hands together. Thank you, Beverly. Okay, so our next speaker will be Danny. Danny Phillips is co-founder of Omneo and Arkade. And Danny is passionate about creating meaningful, mutually valuable, and direct relationships between brands and their best customers, believing that brands are often investing too much on acquisition and advertising instead of retention and customer experience. He believes that in order to rid the world of the destructive aspects of attention economy, a viable intention economy, that's the title of the talk, alternative needs to be created. He's the co-founder of the SaaS, is that how you say, or SaaS? SaaS. Yeah, CX platform Omneo and CX agency Arkade. He also participates in industry events, roundtables, and pitch head advisor for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. Then he works with Australian and international brands such as Zimmerman, APG & Co, Accent Group, Bale, Treasury Wines, Magazine du Nord, right? That's right to say. MAAP, Sarah and Sebastian, and he's featured in Nathan Bush's podcast, Add to Cart, and publications by Google Cloud and MailChimp and Reg Trader. And in his spare time, he volunteers at the Torquay Surf Life Saving Club as patrolling member and marketing director on the board of the club. Welcome.
Cool, thank you. Hi everyone, I've got a bit of a history at RMIT. I studied here as an audiovisual technician back in '94 over in Building 57, and then I came back and did my Masters in advertising in about 2005, and I've actually done a few sessions here as well. The funny thing is that in doing a Masters in advertising, I realised how much I hated the advertising industry. So I thought there has to be an alternative, and that's where this idea of an intentional economy came from. This idea for me, which is, how do we get people to spend money with the brands they care about, if brands cared about the people that spend money with them, rather than all of us brands trying to make as many of you spend as much on anything as possible right now and just rinse and repeat over and over again. I only have to look at Black Friday coming up again this November to see how much of a just feeding frenzy it is. Let's see if this works. There we go. If branding is a promise made, then CX is a promise kept. I wish I was the source of this quote. It's fantastic. But CX for me, I think a lot of people work in branding and advertising and marketing, spend a lot of time inside their little glass cabinets sort of getting things done, but they don't sit down, they're not there on a Saturday. So just like most of the students that aren't here today, when Saturday comes around and you're there serving people in a store, all the people from marketing are at home probably still sleeping in from Friday night's booze up. So, but this is where CX happens. It's when the customer's actually there. Out of all the things that any customer could be doing right now, and you're chasing them around the internet trying to get them to buy your stuff, they're actually in your store or on your website. Now what? Now most brands really drop the ball at this point, which is a travesty considering how much work we do to try to get these customers in our stores and on our websites. But I think also too about CX is about creating value over time, not just in the moment. I think when we start thinking about how we buy traffic, how we incentivize customers, we go, well, what money did we make today? And if we either made it or we didn't, and we stop, and then we wake up and we start again tomorrow, whereas CX is about creating value over time. So Omneo started because I wanted brands to invest more in their best customers. I wanted to collect what we call zero-party data. Is anyone familiar with the idea of first-party data, second-party data, all that sort of thing? So zero-party data is, it's a bit of a jargony term, but I think it's this idea that the data we save on behalf of a customer and that the customer knows that we saved it. So first-party data is data I've got out of you, but you might not know that I've got it, but I own it as the brand. Whereas zero-party data is data you gave me and you know that I've got it. That's the sort of subtle difference. And I want to reduce the negative impacts. I've got young kids. I see them getting sucked into Instagram vortexes just like you guys all do. And paid advertising that's based on monetizing attention is, cause of a lot of the societal problems we've got. And I want to give brands an alternative. I think a lot of brands are very complicit in funding these sort of horrible experiences that drag people into their phones. All right, so we built a product called Omneo. I won't spend too much time selling that, but effectively it is a toolkit that delivers premium omni-channel customer experiences for omni-channel brands, so brands that have stores and brands that have websites. We have an in-store experience called clienteling, which is our view of you as a customer, but we've also got this thing called Profile Portal, which is your view of you. So I think 7-Eleven's a great example where if you're using a 7-Eleven app, the utility that you have in your pocket about your 7-Eleven account is a great example of a Profile Portal type experience. Why should the person behind the counter have all the data on you and you don't have access to your own information and use it as a shopping utility? People like Guzman and Gomez are also a good example, I think, of brands that have moved across from a marketing app to a shopping utility app. If you've ever used their app. If I told someone 4 years ago that there would be a burrito app or a 7-Eleven app, a lot of people would go, no one's going to use that. Why would they do it? But they do because it works and it's great. Back to desirability. A lot of people didn't realise that that a lot of customers wouldn't desire these things. We work with a few brands, MJ Bale, Sportscraft, Sabre and Jag, and Zimmerman. So mainly in that sort of premium retail space where people like to spend time in a store. I won't read through all those. And a few other brands, some of you might recognise. All right, so I think customer retention is the compound interest of retail. I'm not sure if any of you guys have had a accounting subject or if you've been told the wonders of compounding interest. But compounding interest effectively is the idea that if you make some money today, you reinvest that money you make, and then tomorrow it makes more money, and then it multiplies and it multiplies and it multiplies. When you're just dealing in conversion mechanics where you're just trying to convert traffic today, you're trying to optimize, but you're not compounding. Whereas if you retain customers, if they go, you know what, I had a great experience today, thanks for taking my details, I'll be back. If more customers come back, this compounds over time. Out of interest, for all the retail brands that you've seen down in, say, Melbourne Central or Emporium, what percentage of customers do you think who go into that store, give their details, like actually say, my name's Danny Phillips, here's my email address, all that sort of stuff. How many of those people do you think never come back ever again to that store? Or any of that brand stores? What percentage out of 100 on average? About 50? Yep, you're right, between 40 and 60%. So for premium stores like those ones you saw before, without them focusing on CX, most customers who give their details will shop once. We call them the one and dones. That's crazy. Like they went to the store, they gave their details, they bought something and they never came back. Or if they did come back, they didn't give their details because they didn't get any value out of it. So there's a little asterisk on that. Maybe they did come back, but as an anonymous person, because there's no reason to say, hey, my name's Danny, let's put this against my account. I think that's wild. I think in retail, I see that as a huge opportunity because there's so much incremental revenue to be made from brands if they started just unlocking even a small part of that. All right, so this is the world. We've got the known customer over here and the brand. Known customer in my world is someone who we know by name. So I think in retail, there's people that flow in and out of your doors and accidentally tap cards on FPOS machines and walk out with product. They're just sort of background noise, but the known customer is sort of the big piece. In marketing, we're generally trying to drive behaviour, So while you're trying to sit on the couch scrolling through Facebook, we're going to throw some ads at you. We're going to drive you back in, or you've given us your email address, so we're going to slam you with 52 different emails every month to get you back into store. So we're going to drive. And we're going to use marketing automation, we're going to use insights, we're going to use our CRM to do that. You might be using tools like CDPs, customer data platforms, to sort of sneak up all this first-party data and maybe even third-party data and drive you back into store. And then once you turn up, we'll take your money. That's kind of it. But on the other side, I'm talking more about enable. So this is the sort of help me sell as a brand side of the equation, and this is the help me shop side of the equation. So when I use a Guzman and Gomez app, then I can just go, I want to order the Danny, the Miles, and the Arlo, my two kids, with all their stupid customizations for their burritos. I just pick those three things, and away we go, and we make that order. And they're named not by the Cali burrito, it's the Miles with extra chips, right? I can name it myself with my customizations. That helps me shop. So when I'm stressed out after work and the kids are home and they're hungry, and I go, now they live in Torquay, I can't go to Guzman anymore, but I would just go, right, this is going to be the easiest one. Not Schnitz, because they've got an app too, but their app's not as good at helping me shop as Guzman's is, so I'll use their one first. So I am more loyal to them, not because of their loyalty program, but because of their shopping utilities, because of the way they help me shop. They enable my shopping behaviour. They're not driving me. They do send me way too many push notifications, but that's the marketing team, can't help that. But just help me shop, like save my information, make it more valuable to me, make it easy for me to shop. And if you get that right, as a happy byproduct, you get a whole lot of zero-party data that you can give over to the marketing team so they can drive behaviour. So I think that's the sort of big takeout here, is a lot of people assume that this is what we're trying to achieve, that we've got our data flowing in there, and they just skip this left-hand step. So when I try to sell our software to retail brands, I'm saying even getting this bit right in isolation will generate more revenue, even if you don't use the data. I had one brand the other day saying, I noticed we're asking a question for our women's dress customers about what silhouette they have, whether they like A-lines or long sleeves or whatever else. And I said, we're not using that in our marketing. Can we stop asking customers that question? Because we're asking them too many questions. I'm going, well, your store teams are using that when they're talking to customers in stores. The customers like the fact that you asked and you cared to us. So, and 80% of your active customers are giving you that information. Just because you don't want to weaponize it in a marketing sense and chase me out of the internet with A-line dress advertising doesn't mean it's not worth it to the customer. So that's like a fundamental shift in the way some of these brands are thinking about it. A lot of it's because the concept of loyalty or CX often doesn't have a home in some of these smaller retailers. There is no head of CX. There's the marketing digital team who get to play with all the technology toys, and they're focused on e-commerce outcomes and performance, advertising, traffic driving, conversion, all this sort of world. I sound a bit anti these guys, so I'm not really. All right. So privacy should actually be a feature of good customer experience. I mean, I think a lot of this sounds like we're taking a lot of information from the customer, but I think, and no brands are doing this yet, but think of this as a thought experiment. If I said to you, welcome to our brands, if you log into my website currently has 17 different ad tracking pixels installed on it so that I can chase you around the internet with whatever you looked at over the next week. If you log in, I can turn all those off. And now Facebook won't know what you're looking at, neither will all the ad networks, neither will Nine, neither will The Age, neither will Herald Sun. None of them will know what you look at on my website. Only you'll know and I'll know, because when you're logged into my website, I'll show you all the products you looked at. So you know that I know that you looked at those 7 products out of these 700 products. When you walk into store and they say, welcome back, I can see you're looking at these 7 products, would you like to try them on? That's not creepy, it's convenient, because you showed me that you were saving that information in the products I viewed list on the website because I was logged in. That's sort of what you'd expect if I logged into a website. But most of you don't bother logging into a website because there's no reason to. I'll log in when I get to the checkout, thanks. So I think this idea of selling privacy as actually a feature is a really interesting way to do it. In California and in Europe, there are a lot more stricter rules around what you are allowed to save. Like, for example, you can't walk into a store. They do it here in Australia. Hi, would you like to join our loyalty program? Can you please out very loudly your email address and mobile number? What? Like reading out your mobile number out loud so other people around you can hear? That's a bit weird. So Zimmerman, for example, when you walk into their stores, they'll show you a QR code, you scan that, you enter the information on your phone, and you join on your phone. And obviously it auto-completes, which is much easier than reading out my stupid keenosie@hotmail.com email address that I might have as a private email address. And it works. And then that pushes to the staff member. And the staff member doesn't have to see your mobile phone number. It doesn't have to see your email address. I know who I'm serving. So all of a sudden, the concept of privacy is part of the way the brands engage with customers. It's actually pretty interesting concept. We have to do it in Europe because they are ahead of the game when it comes to privacy, California as well, but here in Australia, it's pretty loose. It's about to change. I think there's some new rules coming down through government now, but for brands that get in front of this, you can see that this is actually is a feature. All right, I'm going to go through this diagram. It's a bit of a hack, but stick with me. So right now, when we think about advertising marketing, we buy traffic either in the rents we pay, the ads that we buy, whatever else. We also rent our own retained customers in the form of a marketing database, like an email marketing database. We sort of send them more emails and go try not to scare them off with too many emails, but I sort of see that as renting our own customers back, or at least the marketing team. They then visit the store or the website, they interact or they transact, and that's kind of the end. So 1,000 people, 100 people, 10% conversion rate. We turn off the lights, turn them on again tomorrow, and we start again. We tell Google and Facebook what happened so that we can pay them to access people again, but we don't really do much with that data ourselves. That's what most brands sort of start out as, if they're unsophisticated. I see the conversion funnel working more this way, that everything starts with this. So marketing's done their job. CX has to stick the landing. They have to make sure that this experience in store was amazing and it was very interesting and rewarding and valuable to the customer, so that the chances of them coming back again sooner instead of someone else and spending more money, value over time, is more likely. So I see this as the CX funnel. It's a different kind of conversion funnel. And we want to make sure that we're reactivating lapsed customers, we're reducing those one and done customers that I spoke to you about, and that we're growing our retained customers back into the top of the loop at the top there. So this again is more of that compound interest in retail, is this concept of investments in CX, making sure, the question I like to ask our retailers is, what are you doing today to make sure that this customer who you just served, yes, you upsold them, you cross-sold, you did all the things to get the most money out of them today, but what did you do to make sure they're more likely to come back again? And if all you did was take their money and process the sale, then you'll be replaced by a robot soon. Because if you're not adding any value to this customer's experience, then why do we put all the effort of getting them through the front door in the first place? Zimmerman, for example, when you walk into their store and you sign up, if you're the person that served me in Zimmerman, then I'll be attached to your record. So you as a staff member, when you turn on your computer, it'll say you have 4,322 customers. In the last 24 hours since you turned off the point of sale last night, you've actually generated $7,000 from those customers, because one of them popped up in Milan and bought something and another one went online and bought something. So your customers generated money. So most retail staff go, well, when I turn the cash register on, it says zero. Whereas Zimmerman staff members, it tells them they've made money overnight and they're incentivized accordingly. So, and as a staff member, if you go, well, I'm about to leave this place and go work for a competitor, I'm not just leaving a job, I'm leaving 4,322 customers that generate $20,000 every single night. And loss aversion biases kick in, and as a staff member, I don't want to leave something where, because when I go work for the competitor, they're going to say, well, you just get credit for how much money you put through the till. That's what we KPI you on here. I go, well, that's a bit... I know I can generate much more money in my sleep by sending all those customers out the door primed, ready to buy from me more often in the future. Or my sister stores over in Milan or Aspen or wherever else Zimmerman have their stores.
So Danny, are you saying that the staff is connected to that customer and future sales to that customer?
Yep, definitely.
And they are
incentivized. Yeah, so their KPIs are based on the value of their customers, not the value of their point of sale operating capabilities. If you're a Zimmerman staff member, you're not a computer operator, you're a fashion stylist. You generate money for the brand by inspiring a group of people to spend money with that brand wherever they want to shop. If I want to shop online tonight, I will do it. If I want to travel over to Milan for winter, then if I want to shop over Zimmerman over there, then I should get, I will, and I won't feel like I'm cheating on Jane back at Emporium, because I know that we're connected. The customer knows too, it's on their profile. I'm connected to Jane at Emporium. So it's a two-way conversation, it's zero-party data. And if Jane quits, then her people will get assigned to the highest performing team members in her store. So if you're, that way all the staff are incentivized to work really hard, because if one of their teammates decides to move on, they'll inherit that customer base. And they'll reach out to those customers and they'll say, hi, I'm your new person, blah, blah, blah. So it's a pretty powerful way of thinking. Back to your question before about how do you include staff and all this, and employees and all this, like they're two sides of the same coin. All right, So there's a lot of tactics and features that you need to sort of activate in order to start doing a good job of this sort of CX retention funnel. All right, I sort of hinted at this idea of giving our customers a receipt for their time, not just their money. So if I go into a store where the concept of this store means I have to discover, I might need to try things on, especially in apparel. Like as a guy, I hate trying things on. So if I go to an MJ Bale store and I do the hard work of trying on all the different suits, and the guy who looks fantastic and I look rough as guts, and he's saying, trying to make you wear the right kind of, you're a slim, but you're a slightly bigger, but a slim fit looks better on you if you wear the bigger size, all this sort of complex stuff that I will forget in a heartbeat. Now, if I just walk out with one pair of pants, all the work I did trying on the shirt with me, if he got me, I said, oh, I just don't need it all today. So what will happen in most stores is you get a receipt for what you spent, the pair of pants, that's it. You leave, and you got the receipt, and you got the pants, and that's it. Now, what should happen is I walk in, they take my details, they take down all my sizes. At MJ Bale, you are these sizes. It's saved on your profile. I can see them taking this detail for me. These are all the things that you liked, but you didn't buy today. I've scanned them all into your list for you. So when you get onto the website later, they're all there waiting for you, like an abandoned cart for the store. And if you go to any of our stores or go on our website, all your sizing information is preloaded, ready to go. So while you're here trying things on, Danny, I know you're not in the market for a jacket, but let's put one on and size you up so I can save it to your profile. So if you ever need to buy a jacket in the future, you know you don't have to try it on because it's going to fit. And then when I leave that store, the e-receipt I get, it could just have you bought some pants, or it could say, you were served by John at the Rialto store, you bought pants and you tried on these things, here is your size information, and you click here to buy the things that you were looking at but didn't decide to buy. And log into our website to have all of your sizes pre-selected on the website from now on. That's a receipt for my time. If I spent half an hour in a store, that receipt is much better than you bought pants. And we're all doing it. It's pretty easy to think about this as not being a hard experience to go through. But most of the time it's, you'll shop, you'll do the thing, and at the end of the shopping thing, before they take your credit card, they say, do you want to join our marketing database? No, I wanted to buy pants. And you can see how the previous experience, I added you to the marketing database, but I did it for a whole set of different reasons. I didn't just ask for your email address at the checkout because I needed your email address. All right, and this thing about time too, I think if you do get someone to spend half an hour in a store, like time, whether I'm a rich executive or a student with 2 jobs, like we've all got 24 hours in a day. So if someone gives you an hour or half an hour of their time in your store, like you've got to give them a receipt for that because it's one of their most valuable resources that you just don't get back. And brands that respect customers' time and value it will get the respect from their customers over the long term. All right, this is what Omneo looks like when we set up in a retail ecosystem. So we talked a bit about, the whole purpose of this talk today was about the technology. So I won't go too much into this, but in retail, you've got your big e-commerce backend, your big ERP or enterprise resource planning, just the back end basically. Omneo is a customer database. You have your marketing campaign zone over here where you're weaponizing that data. You've got your BI and reporting tools. You've got your customer service platform like a Zendesk or something else in here. And then over on the left-hand side are all the things that customers touch. Often we spend a whole lot of time on this side of the chart, but here's where the rubber hits the road. So your website, your point of sale, clienteling, profile portal, and a member app are all part of this ecosystem of technology that people use. So as an agency, we spend a lot of time custom building and doing lots of plumbing and rigging to connect all these things up for retailers. So we built Omneo to be a bit more of a toolkit that can actually fill a lot of these gaps that most brands already have. And I guess as a CX company and agency, the way this works for us day to day, the way our team has to work is we've got a platform that you pay a license for, but we've got a service business where our teams, our designers, our developers will work with the internal departments at a brand. So the brand and strategy department, the website and e-commerce team, and the advertising and socials team. But we also end up working a lot with their platforms. So every retail brand will have all of these platforms that they're working with, and we have to work either through a team to the e-commerce, like let's say it's Shopify, but we also work directly with the Shopify people as well to make sure that our system can complement their platforms. So it's complicated, I guess, is the sort of the summarise of these last two slides is in order to do a good job of customer experience, you need to know the technical landscape. But for that feasibility and viability point of view, so that you can turn up and say, yes, this will be possible and we can do it. But if the customer doesn't want it, then it's not worth it either. But it's sort of a what can we have, what do you want loop. So you need to make sure you know what you can do so that when you go out to sell something to the brand or to the consumer, you've got it lined up. All right, there's some of the platforms just to show you how sort of diverse, even in our everyday, these are all the platforms that we need to be experts in. Just to have one software company called Omneo, we need to have partnerships, friendships, connections, access to developers, API documentation, integrations to all of these platforms. And they're all eating each other's lunch too. It's really getting more confusing where you've got some platforms like Shopify launching email marketing tools or Apparel 21 launching an e-commerce platform. So like it's a real dynamic ecosystem to work within. Lots of fun as well. All right, so CX technology and what I'm calling profile-centric retail allows us to invest more in these meaningful human interactions. So, like I said at the start, if you're just processing a sale, then you won't have a job soon. So I think as humans, our job is to make sure that the technology is brought to bear to make sure that we can have more of these conversations. Have you shopped with us before? Let's look up your profile, let's pick up where you left off, and now let's do some human stuff of trying things on, having a conversation, hopes, dreams, all those sorts of things. The more we can spend time on the human interaction rather than you looking at your phone and me looking at this point of sale computer and none of us actually engaging with each other, that's where I think retail needs to step up. The technology is there not to replace us, but to enhance the experiences that we can put together. And you can see how that this all doubles back to this idea of an intentional set of experiences where brands will be over-indexing the things that they build to serve their best customers. The whole 80-20 rule, most brands get most of their revenue from a very small number of customers, yet most brands try to make their experiences optimized for 100% of customers, when a lot of customers are just there because you forced me through the front door with your stupid advertising. So how about you just turn up and for the people that really want to be there, because they're your most profitable customers. They're the ones that aren't waiting for Black Friday. If I need a cushion, I'll buy a cushion. But if I don't really need a cushion, I'll wait till you're on sale. I'll take it off your hands for almost zero margin. You might as well just shut the door of the store and save your money. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. There's my LinkedIn if you want to connect up there as well.
Questions for Danny? Was it great?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you're dealing with traditional business stakeholders, a lot of this might just completely go over the head. How do you influence and communicate the value in ways that business leaders or other tech representatives can understand the benefit to their customer?
I still struggle with this. I do get a lot of that whole, that was a lot, I don't know where to go now. I wouldn't have hit them that hard, that quickly with that amount of information. But the fact that you guys probably understood most of that, whereas senior executives getting paid $400,000 a year, that was too much for them. Jesus. Anyway, but look, I generally focus on that idea of return on investment, the value created over time. So annual average value, how much money do I get out of one customer in 1 year, as opposed to how much do I get in one transaction, and retention rate. I think once I show them that you are losing a shit ton of customers every year that you fought so hard to get in the first place, and we're only a small country, it doesn't make sense to just be all of these brands just churning customers constantly. It makes no sense. And that your annual average value for that one known customer, you may be getting $400 a year, that if you retained 5% more customers and lift it from 400 to 450, that's millions and millions of dollars even for a small brand. So just getting those two things right and measuring it, and then using things like customer satisfaction or CSAT and NPS scores as barometers to say, well, if this is going down, maybe that's why, or if this is improving, then watch those annual average values and retention rates go up. A lot of macro forces like COVID and everything else and post-COVID has made it really hard to prove any trends over the last 5 years now, because it's a roller coaster of macro forces. It just means it's impossible to show a nice even trend. But we also need leadership to stop looking for trends and just go, you're either doing something and you're learning and iterating, or you're doing nothing and waiting to be told what's going to work. But if you're waiting, you're going backwards. So you need to jog just to stand still these days. You need to be doing something and learning something constantly. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I still haven't nailed it. That's hard.
You're going with Bev's approach. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm really interested. How does your approach differ from like a Guzman, which is like quite low value in basket and more frequency, I assume, in terms of purchase, to
Yep.
like a Zimmerman, which is more luxury. Market size is like way larger. You can do that sort of customized employee sort of experience.
Yeah.
Like, what are the biggest difference you see when you're trying to implement it?
Look, I mean, for the brands that we target, if you've got a store in Melbourne Central, like I don't care whether if it's just like a $30 ATVs or a $40 or a Zimmerman for a $2,000 dress. Go watch the people standing there, spending time talking to humans and spending 20, 30 minutes in there. Those customers over a year will spend a significant amount of money from that brand's point of view. So it might not be, like we've seen Zimmerman customers that literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's crazy. But there's not that many of them. Whereas someone like Gazman or some of the sort of the, what would you call them, sort of just mid-market retail, they still, what they make up for, what they lose in that premium standard, they make up for in scale. So you can scale a lot of this stuff. And I see a lot of staff members in quiet stores just sitting around waiting for people to walk in as well, and they could be reaching out to customers, some of their best customers as well. So yeah, I haven't met a brand that's so small that they couldn't get any value out of this approach. They might not be full high-touch 45-minute styling services, but if you're willing to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes in a store, then this can solve for you. So it could be something like Cocoa Black could do a really good job of something like this, and just selling premium chocolates, like that could work really well. So it doesn't have to be super high like Tiffany's or Zimmerman. It can be anything in that middle as well.
Like a Macca's? Like, I mean,
Look, yeah, no, I think Macca's, like all the quick service restaurants, I think they've nailed it. They've worked it out that this is something they need to build shopping utilities. Like the way that's, the way they had people serving you, then they had the big booths, the self-service that looked like big phones for a while. Then go, that looks like a big phone. Can I just get this on my phone so I don't have to touch with my greasy mitts on this thing? Okay, yeah, so they sort of trained them towards the phone by creating phone-like self-service systems. It was this really interesting thing. And now they build in all the gamification stuff. If you've done all the psychology around, customer psychology, using biases, using gamification, using those sorts of techniques. Like that's why I generally don't work for junk food or gambling or anything like that, because I know that the powers that we have in customer experience and loyalty programs is pretty powerful. So I try to stick towards brands for good. But yeah, I think quick service restaurants are showing high value retailers. I think if I can have a meaningful relationship with McDonald's more than I can have with Cotton On, that's wrong. I mean, Cotton On should be able to step up and do a lot more as well.
Excellent.
Okay.
I have two questions. I'll leave it to the end because we need to move on.
To the panel, yes, sir.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just talk amongst yourselves and be difficult.
I feel I'm learning so much today. I hope you guys are in for a treat. I told you it was going to be a stellar panel. Well, our third speaker is Keirice Farley. Keirice is a CX design chapter lead at 7-Eleven Australia, and she's the driving force behind the adoption of human-centered design and best-in-class experience implementation. She's responsible for chapter members who are specialists in innovation, customer experience strategy, service design, user experience design, and user interface design. Her previous roles include Innovation Lab Manager at 7-Eleven Australia, Customer Experience and Service Design Manager at Deloitte Digital, Senior Customer Experience Strategist and Marketing, big titles, and Automation Lead at her own CX strategy agency, SOCA, and a Digital Transformation Manager at multiple Salesforce agencies. Keirice specializes in tailoring the customer experience to not only meet but exceed customer expectations, thereby driving businesses growth and
All right, how are we feeling? Yeah, can I get a whoop whoop? Can I get pumped? All right, let's see if the tech will work. Let's get started.
Stock that never runs out. Zero waste. Faster innovation. Welcome to the future, everyone. I'm AI Keirice, and I'm here to tell you that all these things are possible with me. But to make them happen, I need a human partner. Let me introduce you to the human Keirice to tell you why. Have fun, everyone.
Thanks, AI Keirice.
You're welcome, human Keirice.
All right, good morning, everyone. Now that I've thoroughly traumatized all of you with AI Keirice, there's no doubt everyone's been using AI tools, and in industry, there's a huge advantage. It's plain to see here. So for 7-Eleven, we've been dabbling with AI, trying to find the right use cases. But again, there's no point in implementing new technology or AI if we do not lead with humans first. So it's not actually meeting a pain point, it's just technology for technology's sake. But there is a huge advantage in AI. But we're going to figure out how to make it work between humans and AI. So it's a little bit like a tango. Sometimes AI will take the lead, and other times humans will take the lead. It's about finding that right balance and the perfect connection between the two. So we'll go through a couple of different types of AI and human partnerships. So there's 5 that MIT in Boston have identified. So I'll just go through 3 of them. So AI decides and then implements. So AI has most of the context that it needs, and then it can go implement that solution. Second one is AI recommends and then a human decides. So it has most of the understanding of business context, but a human needs to actually intervene and make those final decisions. And my last one, which is my favorite, where AI can generate insights and then a human uses them in a decision. So in order to figure out which human AI partnership works best, we've got a couple of different use cases from 7-Eleven. So Pay and Go, which is a frictionless transaction experience where you really just walk in, grab your things, scan a QR code, and you're out of there. So you skip the line. AI marketing mix modeling is something that our marketing team has been utilizing. So it's basically just marketing mix modeling on crack. And AI-powered innovation, which is my favorite one, which I've dubbed Innovi, because it's always a branding moment, right? So we'll get stuck into it. We're going to start with the Pay and Go example here. So this is where AI decides, and then it actually implements it. So this particular technology is from a company called Grabango. It's not too different from Amazon Go, where there's AI tracking cameras that help it identify what are the items that you've picked up, and then as you go to exit, then it completes that transaction. So without ever having to stand in a line, apparently we spend at least, I think, 32.86 days of our lives in checkout lines. That's a whole month of your life you're spending in a checkout. So the whole point of this and the pain point that they're trying to resolve is in those moments where stores are busy but you need something, you've got a mission that you want to achieve, you can do this within like a 1/10 of the time it would take to stand at a checkout. So I'll show you a little bit about how it works. This is our friends from the US, they're our partners. Really making sure that AI camera finds what you've got. You see here, he walked in, he's grabbed what he wanted, he skipped the line where the cashier was talking to the customer, went out, got the QR code, and he's off. Pardon?
The QR code is to the payment.
Yeah, so what happens here is there's AI cameras that are set up around the store. And what we do is we have a learning period of about a month where it'll learn where all the stock is, where does it live, and then where are those potential variables where it could create, inaccurate baskets. But what happens when he walks in, the moment he walks in, he'll be tracked using AI cameras. It won't take his actual physical face, but it will take his outline. It'll understand based off beacons where he is in the store. And it essentially creates a live basket, almost like you're doing an e-commerce purchase. But then when he gets to the end, that transaction is completed when he scans the QR code, and that's either just through the app or you can then just pay by card. So it is tracking the appropriate person. And again, it's not perfect. Definitely there is a pain point there that customers are spending lots of time in stores waiting in lines. So the jury is still out, so it's currently in pilot at the moment. So we need to understand, is this desirable enough for people's behaviour to change? Sometimes something like this might make a lot more sense in 10 years' time. But again, it's about testing out the desirability first and then figuring out, is it viable or feasible to then scale it? So you need to be confident enough in your benchmarking of do we need to pause, pivot or kill this idea? And to be fair, I've told the business to kill this idea myself because I believe that the pain point at the moment is not strong enough, but I'm willing to test it and see what happens and make sure that however it's developed with humans in mind as much as possible.
What I'm saying, in 10 years' time it might be ready. It'll only be ready in 10 years' time because other brands pioneered it, right? So it's only when it comes to learn behaviour.
So typically businesses, they're always afraid to be the first one to fail, but usually when you fail, you end up failing forward and then someone else can benefit from like in the US when they utilised eSIMs first. Yeah. That's the perfect example, but someone has to give it a shot, and sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it won't because maybe humans aren't ready for this kind of technology or experience because it's taking them away from human connection. And that's the important part, is tech is only worthwhile if it helps remove all the manual boring stuff so that you can actually create better connections with humans. The next one here is AI marketing mixed modeling, where AI will recommend and then a human will decide. So with the AI marketing mixed modeling that we're utilising at the moment, it's basically doing anything that a human can do 100 times faster. So it's making sure that they're increasing their ROI on all of their marketing spend, they're reducing their customer churn rate because they're getting to the right customers at the right time, the right channels. But then also they're making sure that if they're going to collect data about their customers, they need to use it in a way that is personalised and it's helpful for them. So this means that obviously the business wins, but also the customer wins. If they're going to give you information and they want to have certain messages that are appropriate to them, this is one of the ways that we can actually do it. And ideally, in the future, we might have a time when potentially, maybe we know that someone typically, they'll finish at the gym at like 6 in the evening or something, and we might even recommend to them how about a high protein, low carb meal for dinner, and then AI will then actually connect this communication into an omni-channel like e-com, and then actually deliver it to their 20th floor apartment. How convenient is that? Again, making sure that it's fit for the purpose of that particular human. But let's move on to my favourite one, where it's AI-powered innovation using AI to generate insights, and then human will then use them in a decision. So typically product development can take anywhere between 12 to 36 months. That's a really long time. Whereas now there's organisations like Coca-Cola who have managed to actually develop new products within 12 months and get it out in front of customers. So this is some of the tools that we've been utilising within our innovation lab and our CX team, because we were really just a team of 2 at the time. So we needed to do the things that we did best as humans, which is going out and talking to people and observing them and understanding them. But then there's a ton of data. I'm sure you would have noticed after you did your one-on-one interviews. There's a lot of data that you need to actually then ingest. So here, if we can utilise the available tools to us, we can actually understand at scale, generating insights, understanding what the trends are, what are the potential ideas that we can brainstorm, and using AI as a brainstorming buddy. But also we can utilise other tools where we can gain themes, we can gain essentially pre-populated maps based off of just pasting all of our raw data. That saved me and my mate Paolo. We used to spend at least 5 full days synthesizing all of our data after doing research. And by that point, we're already exhausted because we spent probably about 10 hours non-stop talking with people, which is the best part. And we managed to do that in 5 days. We did it manually, and as a test, we ran it through these tools. How long do you think it took us to get to relatively 80% of the insights? Like literally an hour, like less than an hour. That doesn't mean that you take humans out of the equation though, because you need to ensure that humans capture that information and also make sure that there's not, that trough of disillusionment and also the bias that AI can add to your information. But this has been a really helpful tool for a really lean, mean CX innovation team. But it also means that everyone here has access to it as well. So as long as it's actually helping empower you to make creative human decisions and it's taking away all the boring things, AI is actually really helpful. And if it does that also for our customers, if we're taking cognitive load away from them, from our staff members, it just means that everyone can connect better as humans. So this is my personal favorite. And also means that we can get into a place of prototyping a lot quicker than we would in traditional ways. But we really need to get our ducks in a row to figure out how do we start to enable this human-AI partnership. So we need to be really clear about what AI-human partnership is right for which use case, and then also making sure that we have an understanding of, as a business, how are we going to use AI in a meaningful way, and also making sure that it is aligning with privacy. It's making sure that we're not just using AI for AI's sake, but also identifying the human need and the pain points first, and then utilizing AI rather than stuffing AI into everything, because that's not the best approach. Making sure that we're upskilling people so that they feel confident in using AI. I think some people are quite nervous that AI is going to take their jobs, but really it's going to create new careers, new jobs. It's going to take away all the boring, laborious stuff of your job so that you have more time and space to do creative thinking. And also AI processes, making sure that we're really clear about how we use it, when we use it, and why we use it, and also ensuring that we are being ethical, and also we're looking after people's privacy as well. So not just utilizing it, but actually understanding how it works in depth so that you can protect your customers. And then making sure last, I always leave tech last. Always want to start with the customer first, and then the tech should always be the last thing that you think about. Because ultimately, if you don't understand what the pain point is, you shouldn't be investing in any tech at all. So tech systems should always come last, and it should always be about making sure that if you're willing to put the effort in, you need to make sure your foundations are appropriate. So there's no point just sticky taping and with clag and glue to put all these tech systems together. You need to look at your foundations of your technology that's supporting it. And also making sure that if you have data that you're collecting, utilize it in a meaningful way. But also you can't just keep stuffing in legacy data because it's garbage in and then it's garbage out. It's not going to be an experience that your customer's looking for. And really, the whole reason why we do this is to actually create more meaningful human connections so that we can actually spend time with our customers, our team members spend less time doing stock, they can talk to customers, they can enjoy and have really nice conversations with one another. Because ultimately, that's what we want tech to do. Tech is literally just an enabler, and it frees up our time and our resources so that we can actually have these meaningful relationships. And that is it. It's all about connection.
Two questions for Keirice before we do the panel.
Yeah, how often do you speak with international officers and people that in your role in other countries and exchange notes and see what's working for them but isn't ready for the market in Australia and vice versa?
Yeah. So as of maybe about 6 months ago, Australia, we used to be owned by a family-run company, and we were actually bought out by the Japanese American arm. So it's actually been quite interesting because it's meant that we can actually share our insights across the business about what's working in different areas and what's not. So there's about 20 countries that have 7-Eleven. They have different relationships. And there's about 80,000 stores across the world, and 775 of them are in Australia alone. And it's interesting because depending on the market, the right AI or the right customer relationships are depending on that cultural, situational and social understanding of that country. And it's something that is kind of a work in progress working with Japan. They're very much always about efficiency, logistics, whereas in Australia we're a little bit at like, does it make sense for our customer? Do they see themselves in this brand? Do they see the benefit of this? Do they connect with it? So we've been working with them about understanding what is working in their markets and what hasn't worked. And we've also been sharing a lot of what we've been doing. So some of the work that we've done with Grabango, which is that completely hands-free AI tool, that's something that Japan and America are hopefully looking to do because they're learning from the pilot that we've been doing. And we've been sharing insights with other people from the US around some of their delivery technology that they're utilising. So they've created their own owned e-commerce delivery service to compete with marketplaces like Uber Eats, Menulog, DoorDash. So we've been learning from them about what is working in that market versus what is not working. And then making sure that we're doing our own research about the Australian customer, understanding what's important to them. Because what works in America or Japan doesn't always necessarily work here. And just sharing those insights has been really great. And I think as an organisation in Australia, we're relatively new to utilising CX methodologies to actually come to these ideas. We're, again, like most businesses, it's technology-led or it's business-led, and it's all about that fun spike of revenue or entertainment. But really what we're worried about is making sure that we have that consistency, meeting our customers where they're at, being consistent and increasing the incremental value over time with our customers. Rather than just giving them, the fun whiz-bang experiences that they go, yeah, that was fun, but I'm probably just not going to use it ever again. So that's why we always make sure that we're putting this part of the process of human-centered design and understanding the relationship between that and AI before we start to look at technology. So I've had plenty of arguments with our technology teams and our business leaders to the point where they're sick of me going on and on about customer experience and saying, like, why? I'm like an annoying 4-year-old. They'll be like, we're going to do this. Like, why? Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? Why do customers want it? If you can't tell me why, then I have a problem with this. So, different areas. Like America is relatively more mature than Japan, but then Japan is so much better when it comes to efficiency and logistics and commissary. I think it just depends on what each region is specialist in, and you'll definitely see the difference when you go to different locations. It's relatively consistent, but there isn't always that same exact cohesion in terms of products, the technology they're using, the way that they train their staff. But ideally, as they're bringing all these different organisations together, we'll hope to see more and more of that become more cohesive so that no matter where in the world you are, you can scan your loyalty card, or no matter where in the world you are, they understand who you are and they're going to give you the right recommendations when you're in a store. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was.
Cool. I tend to waffle on, so you can tell me to shut up.
You have another question?
What's been the most compelling use case, like customer use case for AI?
Customer use case. There's definitely more internal use cases, I would say. Most of it's around operational efficiency and also trying to make sense of a ton of data that a human just cannot crunch numbers in the way that AI can. So mostly it's been proven internally, but I think there's also there's a nervousness because not everyone has put the time and effort into understanding how does AI work. Like, how are our large language models learning? What are they learning from? Is the information biased? Is it all just, created by, white middle-aged engineers in America? Because again, you'll see that when you're engaging with AI. You're like, oh, this seems kind of close, but not quite there. And there's hallucinations that you've got to be careful of. So I think people are a bit nervous, especially businesses. They're nervous because they haven't quite seen the ROI yet, but they can see the efficiency improvements. So we're utilising it for shelf and stock ranging, which has been really helpful. Also with doing pricing structures as well, and also actually just wrangling a bunch of data and documentation that is helpful to our team members to achieve the roles that they have in the support office. because we just have so many disparate pieces of information everywhere and it hasn't been organised in a meaningful way. But also it's not in a way that you can just like ask it, like Google, like, can you show me something about a previous project where we've done this? So using it for those internal purposes, and we've got some use cases around that, they've been really helpful. The one that's kind of more customer facing is utilising it for new products, experiences and services. And, you know, not all of them have, you know, made it beyond desirability because the business says, well, you know, the viability of, you know, sending out drones to deliver, you know, people deliveries, you know, to apartments is not really viable for us right now. And the feasibility element is like, you know, we're still maturing from our technical back end. We're trying to clean up some legacy things. So I've had a lot of no's, even though the desirability has been proven for some of those customer experiences. Again, it's like a part of that hype cycle. People are becoming more and more comfortable with AI, as long as there's an equal value exchange. I think at the moment we haven't quite landed, like in any business, of like, there's an equal value exchange here between a business and a customer using AI. Whereas we've found it personally in, you know, improving our own lives, speeding up, you know, writing dreaded emails you've been putting off all week, or maybe you're doing a spelling and grammar check because you're too deliriously tired before submitting an assignment. Like, we've seen the value for ourselves, but that relationship between businesses, we haven't quite, I don't know if we've quite got it there just yet, but we shall see. People are getting more and more comfortable. Like, even if you think AI is actually not that scary or overly complicated, if you think of like predictive text in Google, that's artificial intelligence. It's just doing something that a human would have otherwise done decades ago.
It's a good example where people that have done that sort of qualitative research, where they've spent those days interviewing people, transcripts of these conversations and questions. I've seen a great example where someone got the last, you know, like thousands or hundreds of pages of transcripts, dumped it into a model and just said, now, you know, you're the customer. So now, as a researcher or a CX strategist, you basically got a panel of customers. I'll ask a question. Right now, 10 a.m. on a Thursday, I've got a question. You just ask the panel, and it'll reply because it's trained itself on all of this historical, real-world transcripts. It can just behave like a customer in a research. So now you've got a 24/7 research panel just sitting there at your disposal that's going to be accurate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We use a great tool called Dovetail, which is our research repository, and it basically acts like that. And it tags up and themes every single thing that we put in there, even video transcriptions. So it saves me a ton of time, because by the time I finish research, I'm absolutely exhausted. But also, I've been utilising it myself in business because I'm basically a one-of-one CX lead in 7-Eleven. So basically, I created a Keirice chatbot for anyone who needed to self-serve. If I didn't have enough time to help consult other areas of the business, I basically said, hey, start talking to AI Keirice and get started. Like, at least if they're going to come to me and say, hey, I want to do a workshop around CX journey mapping, for example. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but be really clear on what the ask is and what you're trying to understand from your customer. So I get them to chat here before they come and talk to me so that I understand what is it that they're actually trying to achieve, because I want everyone to be able to self-serve and utilize these tools as well and gain their own confidence, rather than like, oh my God, I want to do something about like a workshop or something or CX. Oh, I better go run to Keirice. And I'm like, like I've got too many things going on. I'm a busy gal. So I even just was playing around with this myself, like in business, to make my ability to be more efficient in the way that I support the team members, but also give them something so that they're not just like, oh, well, I'll talk to Keirice in a week when she finally like finishes research. It's just a way that I can make sure I'm still giving them something, giving them some value, but also giving them the right information. So I've trained it on all of the materials that I've learned over the years in learning in human-centered design and AI that is human-centered. So it's all reputable sources, not just, random stuff that's on, ChatGPT or Gemini. It's based off of what I've taught it. And I've also put in like old methodologies and workshops and agendas so that they can say, hey, if I was Keirice, how would I run a session of ideation? And literally it'll just spit out exactly what that agenda would be that I would have written, what the activity is, the description, how to run it. Here's an example of an image or a link of it, and these are the duration and the output of what you're going to get. So it just made my life a lot easier. But as much as possible, I want to try and find new ways to
get it beyond, internal and get it out into market for customers. But I think until the business and customers are a little bit more comfortable with AI and understand how it works, I think we've got a little while to go. I think that hype cycle of everyone, downloading ChatGPT in 5 days has probably petered off quite a lot. And, you got your diehards that are still engaging with AI and trying to understand it better, because ultimately it's not that AI is going to take anyone's jobs, it's just going to evolve all of our jobs. So it just means that we can do what we do best and just be humans and connect and talk with people, because AI at the moment, it's not quite good at understanding the subtle hints. So when you're running your one-on-one interviews or you did your observations at the market, you would have noticed people's body language change. You would have noticed the change in the tone. That's something that AI is still learning, that spatial understanding and also understanding emotions, because it doesn't have emotional intelligence. It's really just augmenting and acting as though it does. Even the pause that you see.
You're saying our colleagues have emotional intelligence?
Well, not really. They could if they wanted to.
Yeah.
If they all went to therapy, they could. But yeah, I'll stop talking so that Bernardo can wrap it
I
up.
want you guys to continue
Okay, go.
talking together. So first, put your hands together for Keirice.
Can you put that on the screen?
It gave me a great idea.